here's one piece of advice, right? Is there's not going to be anybody ever more invested in your career than you. You got to be the CEO of your career. If there's something that you really want and that you want to do, and there's something that you want out of your life, you will find the time to do it. Period. Period.
Hello and welcome to the Gross Profit Podcast. My name is James Kennedy. I'm not a DJ, but I am a CEO at a software company that takes the hassle out of managing your company's spend with magical features. Thanks for listening in. And as you know, or may not know, we are doing a series of speaking with fractional CFOs for different types of customers. This week, I'm very excited to invite along Chris Ortega from Fresh FP&A. And we're going to have a chat today about some of the challenges of starting a fractional CFO business. We're going to get into tech companies and scale-ups in particular. And I'm very excited to get started. So, Chris, thanks very much for coming along. How are you feeling today?
James, thank you so much, man. Feeling great today. Looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, for those of you people who have not heard of you before, maybe you could just give us a rundown of your background, what you've done in the past, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I've been in accounting, finance, FP&A, and financial leadership for over 2 decades, primarily in high growth businesses. So software, technology, retail, e-commerce, pharma, and renewable companies. Most recently, I led an international marketing platform company to scale, kind of built up the Americas operations, got that to acquisition with SAP. Stayed over for a year to help with the post-merger integrations of the two companies, and then I found myself in a fork in the road, James. I found myself in the fork in the road on two different things. The first one is like I know what it takes to transform and scale a finance organization throughout my career, throughout my opportunities that I've had. I've been there, done that. I know the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And the second thing is like I felt like there needed to be a fresh perspective brought to finance. So a little under 2 years ago, I started Fresh FP&A, and basically, what we do is we provide fractional CFO and advisory services to those high growth businesses. I run a global fractional CFO business. I lead our Americas. I have fractional CFOs based in London, and I have another fractional CFO based in Sydney, Australia. So we're a global fractional CFO business, and I'm based in Indiana, and I'm a Hoosier through and through.
So
There
let me
you
just bring
go.
you back to this moment. You know, you're obviously pretty successful bringing a company to acquisition with SAP, one of the largest companies in the world. Those guys have deep pockets. I'm sure it was a very profitable transaction for to bring it to that stage. I guess you were on top of the world. You could have done anything. Why why become a fractional CFO? What makes being a fractional CFO a good business for you?
Yeah, so me at that point, right? So up until that point, the last three software companies I was at always were acquisition. So what I always came in and did is I was always like the first finance hire or the first leader in that group, build up the organization, and then it sends off the acquisition. So after going through that for the last three different companies, I really it was at this stage in my career where it was like I had a great conversation with my sister. This is the turning point of it. And I was talking with my sister, and she was like, "Hey, Chris, like, I see that you're super passionate about this. You love like sharing your skills, passions, talents, and experience with others. You love making an impact. You love, seeing organizations grow and scale." And she says, "Chris, like, when are you going to chase your purpose?" And when she asked me that question, I was like, "What do you mean? Like, I am chasing my purpose. Like, I'm building these companies. I'm doing this." She's like, "I see that you're doing that, but like, when are you going to do that?" And when she asked me that, that was really the catalyst. It was like inception. It was like an idea dropped in my mind where I'm like, hey, let me take, and most of the organizations I've been with in those scaling opportunities, they've all been entrepreneurial organizations, right? So like I've grown and learned both in accounting, finance, FP&A, and leadership, just being surrounded by some of the greatest entrepreneurs I've ever had a chance to work with. So really, it was at that point in my career is like I'm gonna take the leap of faith, right? I know I have the skills, I know I have a passion, I know I have the talents, I know I have the experience, I know I've been there, done that, And what better stage in my life than just say, let me take this leap of faith. And that was like right around when the pandemic happened as well, too. So like we're crossing in that pandemic phase where this idea of remote and this idea of organizations realizing that, hey, we can still be successful, we can still bring a lot of value, we can still have a growing culture, and we can still be remote about it. So I think like a lot of the pandemic factors like went into that. And I just honestly, man, took the leap of faith and said, you know what, man, I rather fail in trying than succeed and not try at all. And that was the catalyst to starting Fresh FP&A.
And did you set yourself a goal? Like, if I haven't got this much rev, did you give yourself a number of months? Did you say, no, this is it, I'm burning the boats? Or were you like, keeping your old employer's sweet on the side? What was your what was your
No, for
red
me,
line?
for me, I said, you know what? I think this comes back to in building high growth finance organization is like it's a very easy framework of how I think about things strategically, right? Like, what's the vision? What are the strategies? What are the tactics? What are the metrics? What are the milestones, right? So when I embarked on this journey, I was like, I got to set that, right? What is the what is the vision of the organization? And for me, throughout my career too, I've never been the type of person that's been motivated by like money. Like that just doesn't. I don't get up every day and just be like, oh man, like, am I gonna be? When am I gonna get my next $1 million? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think about things like that. For me, it's all about impact. And when I look back over my personal life, my professional life, being in college, when I've chased making an impact, when I've chased failure, when I've chased helping others succeed, like everything else has come along with that, like power, money, titles, advancement, promote, all that stuff that really at the end of the day, at least for me, didn't matter. So when I came into this Fresh FP&A piece of it, I was like, all right, I know how I'm going to differentiate myself. I have a great network of entrepreneurs and other people. I have a great network of mentors that have led professional services organizations. So I'm all in on it, right? And I know. And then the other thing too, I think a lot of entrepreneurs like face when they make that leap is the risk of it. They're like, "Well, I don't have it all figured out." Nobody has it all figured out, right? So I gave myself the grace to know, like, "Hey, Chris, I'm gonna spend the first 6 months just learning how to be a great CEO and building a great business. That's what I'm gonna figure out to learn how to do." So I think people don't take that leap of faith because they look at it's all these different factors that are like, well, I can't have this. And again, I get it, right? Some people have families, some people have other situations that can limit that opportunity to do it. But for me, I was like, man, there's no better opportunity to take this right now. And here's the reality, James. Like, here's the actual reality. Fresh FP&A fails, it doesn't succeed. I can go find another CFO job. Like I could go find a company and go be their CFO or find another opportunity like that. So it's not like my skills are, if anything, my skills are amplifying even more because not only am I leading the business, but I'm also working with clients as well too. So for me, man, you gotta take the leap of faith, man.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like a lot of people will say, "Okay, I got a family, I can't do it now." But for me, it was the exact opposite. I got someone pregnant, my wife, and then I was like, "Well, now I have no choice. It's got to work." So it can work either way. I like
Yeah.
the way you went for it there. There's basically all now is always the right time. Uh, you reminded me
Yeah.
there. I think I googled it here. The 40-70 rule. You ever heard of this? Like it's
No, I
called
never heard of it. What is it?
so I think I googled it. Colin Powell is coming up here in front of me, and he comes up with this thing where if you wait till you have more than 70% of the information you need certainty, you've waited too long. And if you act
Yeah,
before you have more than 40%, that's too quick. So basically, it's never perfect. You're either waiting too long or you're going too fast. You just got to go. You basically just commit on all in. So I think
definitely.
it's a good role. So when you started off, okay, so we know like my view of fractional CFO is, you know, it's a company, its books are in a mess, I'm going to say. I'm just guessing here, like they've had more success than they know how to handle. Somehow money is coming in and when they're asked, what's your profit? They're like, like, well, I have this money in the bank and or where are your plans, or what are you going to be in 18 months, or maybe to go to try and raise some debt for the first time, and they're asked for all this stuff, and their accountant, who's great girl or guy, who's giving you stuff out of QuickBooks, but for somehow you just don't feel in control of your own business. And I've definitely been there. Like, so when people are buying your services, what problem are they hoping to solve? Is it getting control? Is it getting a plan into their business? Is it what problem are most of your clients having when they come to you?
Yeah, so we work with all different kind of high growth businesses. So business owners, business owners, and founders, all the way from like seed companies, all the way to what we consider mid market. Our largest client is about $280 million. So we kind of cover 300 and below is kind of where we stay. And typically, where I see a lot of the problem, it's very clear to me, right? And I've seen this problem, and I've addressed this problem both working and building Fresh FP&A. And the problem is, you get that CEO, you get that business owner, you get that founder. And, right now you take the macro environment that we're in right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? That's just like one piece of it. There's a lot of economic uncertainty. There's not a lot of future uncertainty. There's a lot of risk. And you get these CEOs, business owners, and founders that are like, man, I don't know how to navigate this, right? Maybe they're a product led CEO. Maybe you're a product led CEO, or maybe they're like a sales led CEO, right? And now they're coming into this market of uncertainty and they're like, man, how do I know if our cash is right? How do I know if we have the right people in the right seat? How do I know if the finance organization is having the right processes? How are we building the right partnerships? So they have a gap, right? And typically, CEOs, business owners, and founders, right? Finance is typically the gap. The numbers are the gap, right? And that's where we come in. We help them and we serve as that strategic finance leader to help them transform and scale their finance organization, right? I think one other thing that I just want to clarify and call out is one thing that we don't do at Fresh FP&A is like we're not your bookkeepers, right? Nobody on my team, no fractional CFO on my team, nobody that helps support us. We're not in doing your month end close, your balance sheet reconciliations. A lot of fractional CFOs that I just see, right? They land and expand. What do I mean by that? They land with providing accounting services. We'll do your month end close. We'll handle your GL. We'll do your balance sheet reconciliations. And they try to expand to provide strategic fractional CFO services. Well, anybody that's been in finance that has reached, like myself, that has reached the highest levels in the finance organization, there's a big difference between a controller and a CFO. There's a huge difference. So where we position ourselves is we start at the strategy, what I just mentioned, that funnel before. We're going to help the vision, we're going to set the vision, the strategy, the tactics, the metrics, the milestones, the execution plans for your entire finance organization, right? And the good thing is like if accounting is your problem and a pain, I've got 15 referral partners that I've worked with throughout my career that I'm happy to refer from the accounting service, right? But what we're not gonna do, we're not gonna be in there doing your, hey Chris, I just spent $50 on a meal, right? Okay, that's great. Like, right? That doesn't move the needle. We're gonna be helping you think about the future of the business. How do you scale? What technology you need? How do you get the right people in the right seat? How are you optimizing processes? How are you driving a culture of high performance? How are you ultimately driving profit optimization inside of your organization? That's where we're going to help. And that's the problem and pain we're going to solve. So that's just one clarity. Cause like, sometimes I get prospects, CEOs, business owners, and founders reach out to me and they're like, they have fractional CFO remorse. And what I mean by that is they're like, well, Chris, I don't know, man. We hired a fractional CFO, and after 2 months, I quickly realized they didn't have that strategic level gear. They couldn't
Uh-huh.
help me think strategically about my people, my processes, my partnership, my platform, my performance, my profit optimization. They make sure we got the numbers, but they couldn't take that leap. So that's one thing I always want to make CEOs and everybody looking at this, the same rigor that you would go through if you were to hire in that role, go to the experience, right? Make sure those people have been through those wars. They've raised those funds. They've scaled these organizations. They failed at the technology adoption that they have. So for me, that's always a key point I want to make sure people are thinking about when they're thinking about a fractional CFO.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, I'm Until recently, almost allergic to the word of strategy because anytime anyone can say I'm strategic, and normally when they say I'm strategic, I hear I don't want to work. Like, I'll be honest, that's a lot of times what I hear because a lot of people don't have the experience and they don't have the track record, but they would like to work on the strategic, issues in the business. And at the outside, like, how are you supposed to tell the difference? Like, two people telling me they're strategic thinkers, you know, I guess to your point there is you look for the experience. Okay, well, where's the foundation of what you're saying that, because maybe later in life I'm coming to appreciate it a bit more. Maybe it's not such a good idea to be running around with your hair on fire all the time. But what are the let me bring in a question here from Mesh, who sent in a great question, which was okay. So I'm sort of trying to evaluate, a fractional CFO. Like, what are the qualities you would look for in that person? Like, if you had to hire for one, what would you? I guess you do because you're expanding your network, right? So, like, what
Yeah,
do
I
you
got a
look
team. I
for?
got a team of it. Yeah, I got a team. I think the first thing, and this is probably a little bit different. This is more fresh perspective, right?
Yeah.
I want to have people on my team that are focused on our North Star of the business, right? Every partner, every client, every person that we work with, consultant, everybody that works for Fresh FP&A, the first thing is like, I need to make sure you're aligned to our North Star in the business. And our North Star is this, right? I want everybody on our team, whether you're a fractional CFO or you're on the pod supporting the fractional CFO, I want you to be able to use your skills, passions, talents, and experiences to help others realize and achieve greatness. That's one of the first things. So it's more of a qualitative factor, but I need to make sure that people are focused on that, right? And one of the first, so like when I was building Fresh FP&A, I got in touch with she's a mentor of mine. Her name is Emily. And she's out in San Francisco. So Emily, when I was going throughout my career, she was a mentor of mine all the way throughout my career. And she was one of the first fractional CFOs that I brought on board to help me build Americas, right? And I brought her on board, and she got to this point, James, where she was like, "Chris, man, I built organizations." She took an electronics company public, and she's later in her career, but she was like, "Chris, man, I'm tired of just the political aspect of it, like the politics that come with being in that. The other thing I'm really tired of is like I really want to have that flexibility to spend time with my family. And the other thing is I want to make an impact. So much of what I was doing it was like checking the boxes and you're going through the motions. And I remember talking with her and I said, Emily, that's exactly what you're going to be doing here, right? that's
Mhm.
that's exactly the value we want to provide. That's what we want to bring to it. So I think the first one is looking at to make sure they're aligned culturally to the business, right? Because I think another thing about how I'm building Fresh FP&A, it's not about like new clients, new clients, new clients, how we're building new, how we building it. I'm all about the journey, right? I want my team, I want our clients to be, we want to be in the journey with you. We want to see you go from a Series A fundraising to like a Series B. We want to help you around that. Now, I know eventually that we've had clients where we kind of reached that destination point and it made more sense for them to bring them on full time. And we helped them through that. We actually helped them find the person to bring them on in that. And it wasn't a CFO level role. It was more of like a finance manager, VP of finance level role. But that's what we want to do, right? I want people that want to be part of the journey. I want people that are aligned to us culturally. I want people working with our clients that want to make an impact and be part of the journey. And I think the third thing is like you got to have that experience, right? Like I go deep into like tell me about it. Like, where did you mess up? What could you have learned? What pieces of information could you have? Like when I go and look at that experience level, because like I'm putting these in front of you, like you're gonna be working with clients, you're gonna be working with these people, you're gonna be working with our prospect, you're gonna be working with our partners. I need to make sure that you have that depth and that expertise, right? So I think for me, those are the three. Like, here's the reality, right? I'll hire somebody if they like, hey, tell me about how great you are at data analysis. Like at the end of the day, is a CEO going to care about if I did the best data analysis in the world? No, he's not going to care at all, right? I've never had a CEO, business owner, or founder ever tell me or my team, Chris, you did a great forecast. They
Mm.
don't care about that. It's like, hey, you did something great to help me have a better understanding about where we are, where we going, and how we get there, and how do we break that down in the next 3, 6, 9, 10 months, tactics that we need to do. How do we measure success? How do we follow that recipe to know that we're progressing where we need to go, right? And how are you being I think another unique thing is like we're not just finance people that solve finance problems, right? I'm a business person that's going to work with you to solve business problems, right? Like that's another thing is like how do you feel about collaboration outside the finance organization, because we do a lot of that. So for me, I know that may be a little bit different. Like I don't talk with people or even on the pods that help support us, right? Like I have clients that I work with, and I have 3 people as my pod to help support me and my client base, right? 2 of them are more your traditional. One of them is a more technical finance resource, so he's going to know a lot of systems. He's going to know a lot of technologies and things that we work with because we work with a lot of technologies with our clients. Then I have a more junior, like FP&A, solid FP&A kind of data person. And then I kind of have like a mid-level manager to help manage all of that pod. So that's kind of how we operate with businesses. It's like you're not just getting me, you're getting a CFO, you're getting a middle level finance person, and you're getting that tactical and strategic FP&A support that you're getting as well too. So for those level roles, it's a lot different, right? Like it's technical. Tell me about your experience. Like you go into the more depth of the tools and technologies for those level roles. But when you're thinking about hiring that fractional CFO, man, like people, their depth, the impact that they want to make, that's really the criteria, man, and how they align to us and where we're going as a business, right? Because the worst thing I could do is hire somebody and they're just like, I want to make as much money as this as possible, right? All I care about, well, that's not my objective, right? That's not where I'm leading the business, right? So you got to make sure you have those fits, and I think to me those are the top criteria that I look for when I'm looking to bring on either a fractional CFO to help us grow our business.
You need a real growth mindset for that because you're these days, like, work is changing a lot. And there's all this talk about, people have, I don't know how many, 5 careers in a lifetime now or something. It's really changing. And I see it even sometimes when I'm working with our team. People are, they obviously they're everyone looks for some certain level of security. But I think the real what's happening is your security comes from your innate ability. Like you're actually kind of if you're able and you're confident in your abilities and you focus and improve them all the time, you will always be, always have security because there's always someone need that set of skills, and it allows you to grow beyond just kind of lock in, someone to, working with you for, or, looking create a false sense of security because that's not a place of growth. That's a place of it comes to an end point. Eventually you
Yeah.
slow down and you crawl. And I like that idea of, being on it because I definitely with a CFO and anyone on the leadership team, you really want to have that sense of growth mindset. We're here for that North Star. I love you have your own North Star, and we're here for that purpose. That comes first. If we just trust and pray to God that if we do this thing, we'll be fine. But we just got to concentrate on this thing, and then everything else will work its way out. Can you give
Definitely.
me
When I tell like I'll just add to
yeah.
that, James. Like this is one of the things I guarantee. I call it the Fresh FP&A guarantee, right? When I work with CEOs, business owners, and founders in high growth businesses, all the way from like C to mid level customers globally across the globe, right? I tell them this. I make the Fresh FP&A guarantee. I tell them that I guarantee that you would have never worked with a more collaborative, communicative, and clarity driven CFO than our team. I make that guarantee. And if we don't deliver on that, and we don't deliver on the value that we're going to provide you every single month, because that's how we operate,
Mhm.
I'll give you your money back. I'm that confident in that we're going to be the best finance partner that you've worked with, and we're going to deliver value consistently every single month. If we don't do though, I have these literally in our contract agreements. If we don't do that, I would happily, hey, we didn't deliver, we're not the best finance partner that you worked with, here's your money back. Here is your money back, right? And I'll help you if that, I've never got to that eventuality with the client, but if we did, I would learn from it. I would sit there and say, okay, where did we fail? Where did we learn? How can we get better? what are some gaps? Is there ways that we can improve on this? Is it a team thing? I would do all the due diligence that I would have to go through to make sure we figured it out. And then ultimately, if it wasn't, it's like, hey, I'll help you find that, right? That's how confident I am in my team. That's how confident I am in what we're going to provide. And all the clients that we worked with globally, I mean, I get on calls all the time. They're just like, man, this is like, I never thought this is what working with a CFO was, right? I thought it was just like they're gonna give me the numbers, they're gonna tell my team we're over budget, they're gonna, do all this traditional stuff, right? And that's a guarantee that I make. I stand behind that, right? That's how confident I am in my business. Is like I stand by it, and if we don't deliver, you're gonna get your money back. Period.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. So, oftentimes you bring someone high level into your team, and the first thing they say is, "Right now, just give me 3 months to figure out how your business works, and then we'll have a meeting, and we'll deliver some value." And as an owner, your heart always sinks because it's like, well, so what's your strategy for delivering value as fast as possible, or do you worry about that? Do you say, "Listen, actually, if you want quality advice, you just gotta give me 3 months to know your business." What's your strategy there when you onboard a client?
Yeah, yeah, and we've had that with clients, right? And to me, it's what are those like intimately knowing the pain of the client, right? Like, what is the immediate pains that you have, right? And typically, where it's going to fall into one of six areas, right? And this is just what I've learned and what I've grown in clients that we worked with. Pain is going to fall into one of these six areas. It's either going to fall under people, it's either going to fall on the processes, it's either going to fall on the partnership that they have, it's either going to fall with the tech platforms, it's going to fall under performance, or it's going to drive in profit optimization. One of the pains, one of the immediate pains that you can solve, it's going to fall into one of those, right? But it does take time, right? Like the thing about it is I've had clients, right, and we've had to set expectations where it's like, hey man, we are in a fractional capacity, right? So we're not there every single day. We're not 8 hours a day, right? Like with 8 hours a day, it's a little bit different. So it is balancing that expectation of taking time, but it's also setting clear expectations like, hey, here's what month one is going to look like. A lot of month one is getting access to systems, understanding processes, getting into if you have like weekly or bi-weekly leadership meetings, getting into those, getting into a pulse of your organization, connecting if you do have like internal accounting finance resources, connecting with them. So a lot of the first month is getting up to speed on things, right? And it's also setting that roadmap with them. But we're not waiting to month 5 to say, hey, we got to do this or this is the value that we provided. It's really about making sure you set those expectations because I think that's a really big thing because a lot of CEOs, business owners, and founders, they move very fast, right? And it's just like, you didn't give me
Sure.
something in a week. It's like, hey, man, like I haven't even got access to your NetSuite yet. So like this is what we're going to work through. And a lot of times, what we do with our clients is we customize out like a project plan of like, here's what this is going to be. Here's how we need to get set up. Here's the accesses. It's part of our onboarding process that we kind of go through and we kind of map out that first 1 to 4 months of what that looks like. And it varies amongst a lot of different clients. I mean, there's clients that I know we've had. My other fractional CFO that's based in Orlando, his name is Dominique. Like week one, he found some stuff to help with like cash on their cash burn side, right? And it was around contract negotiation. Like first week, he, dove into it. And he's like, man, if we are able to make this contracting process a lot easier and like implement that right now, they can see bottom line results like immediately, right? This is a very contract heavy business. Week one, they're like, how do we never find this stuff, right? So it's all about managing the expectations. Cause like if I get a CEO or a business owner or founder and they're like, Chris, uh, where's the result? Where are we getting something? I'm like, hey man, we're probably not the right fit for you. If you're gonna be looking for every week, what have we done? What are we tracking? How many hours are your team working? That to me is like, hey man, that's probably not you probably need somebody that you can manage, that you could have and look over and direct them in what they need to do. And that's probably a better fit. So for me, that's kind of how we mitigate that expect is setting that proper expectation. We work in that customized kind of road mapping with all of our clients to kind of map out the first 1 to 4 months. And then we execute. And then every week we always have touch points with our clients. Like I'm always having conversations and discussions to making sure we're checking in. We're always getting a pulse of the business. I think those are some effective strategies that's been helpful for us.
Okay. And just one more question on like this fractional CFO piece, and then I got my last question to finish up, which is, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of doing what you did, taking the step, moving from industry, setting up your own practice? Like what has been the biggest learning and thing you would tell them to do?
I think the biggest learning that I had is looking back over like so I was already doing a lot of this. This was my side hustle before it came my full-time life, right? If I'm being fully transparent, like I was already doing side consulting projects. I was working with, some friends of mine that were, they're building a business and they're like, Chris, we need a great finance person. And I've worked with you before. So like I was doing this for probably about 4 to 5 years before I took the leap of faith of saying I'm going all in on it. So to me, I think that was the sweet spot for me is I just didn't go from like having a job and building a company and just jumping right into it, right? I had this where I was kind of doing it on the side. I was making some passive income, right? I think this comes back to my like growing up. I've always had like an entrepreneurship hustle. Like I've always said, like, how can I mow grass or how can I collect candy and sell it out my locker? Like I was always thinking of ways that I could do something to make money off of things, like whether it's my intelligence or whether it's just work. So I kind of had that buffer zone where I was like doing this with a couple of people. And then I finally took that leap of faith. So to me, I think if those fractional CFOs or those people out there like find those ways like this is probably really really aggressive, but use your full-time job as like that's that safety net, right? here's
Yeah.
one thing Here's one piece of advice, right? Is there's not going to be anybody ever more invested in your career than you, right? I've never been in organizations that's been more invested about my development and growth than me, right? You got to be the CEO of your career. And I think if people realize that and say, maybe you do have a family or you do have this security of that, like go find those ways to say, you know what, like I'm gonna do my full-time job. I'm not I'm gonna be fully dedicated, which I was always fully dedicated. This never got in the way of me performing at a high level what I needed to do. But it also gave me like those practical learning experiences, right? Like for me, it gave me the ways of like, oh man, I did that completely wrong, or like I should have never got into this one, or and even through along the way, as I was building that as a side hustle, I was building connections with people that this is what they do. So I think like there's this like 0 to 100, right? Zero is like I got a full-time job and I'm not I'm zero committed to this to 100%, right? That's a big getting to 0 to 100 in a car, in a boat, in a plane. It's gonna take time, right? But like if you can test these things out, which I call minimum viable products, set these MVPs and say, okay, I may be thinking about starting my fractional CFO business. Maybe I just want to, the first goal I want to do is just like, hey, find my network, like find a niche that I want to have. Like, you could do a lot of the investigating pre-work while you're having a full-time job, right? What kind of clients you want to serve, what kind of problem you want to provide, what kind of value you want to bring, what kind of relationships you want to build. Like you could be grooming a lot of that when you're still working full time, right? So to me, I think that's a superpower for people. It's like you don't have to go from completely saying, giving your 2 weeks notice and I don't have anything, I'm just going right in. You can kind of have this middle ground and create these MVPs where you're helping incrementally build that business.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on a hot topic of right now. That's what some people are calling overemployment. Like some people take it too far. They've got like two jobs. I see it almost once a month now, we'll
Yeah.
say, in different
Yep.
places, either friends of mine or whatever. And but it's true. There's no truly bootstrapped company. Like every company needs to be funded in some way. It's either, well, they call it bootstrap, but like that's either you putting your savings in, your spare time, your, something else. Like it's never, there's always that like, gray period. And if you can do it in a way that's still congruent with your main employment, like, on our team, we all want to, this is the only job you're doing. This is it. We're all in. You're drinking the Kool-Aid or you're not. Well, maybe that's because we're a smaller company. But like, so definitely a bigger company is a thing where, you can maybe do both, or maybe you get to a very high level in your career where genuinely you have the bandwidth to maybe take on a directorship, take on something else, like, but it's because your, your main energy can be put into your main business still, but you still have some capacity. So it's a it's a touchy subject, but it's true. It's one of
It
these
is.
things that it's the quiet bit said out loud, right? It's
It is, and I share that with people, and I'm not advocating right for people to be like, hey, I'm just not gonna like commit
yeah,
to my full time job, right? But I look back over my experience, right, and you look at it, and I was 100% dedicated. But like I would do this stuff on the weekends, right? Like I'll be on a Saturday, and I'm like, all right, well, I got my Saturday free. Like I'm gonna go meet with the client, do some stuff on the weekend. So if you really, this is one thing I fundamentally don't believe. If there's something that you really want and that you want to do, and there's something that you want out of your life, you will find the time to do it. Period. Period.
yeah,
I don't believe in people that are just like, oh man, I don't have any time. No, you will find time to be able to do it. And I think to me, like we kicked off the conversation about that, like taking that leap of faith and that risk. For me, after coming through a couple acquisitions and like doing this, I'm like, hey man, like I'm going all in on it. So for me, it was a different conversation because like I've been there, done it a multiple different times, and now I want to go be able to like go after it full time. But yeah, man, like test it out because a lot of times you could go into it and be like, man, I'm glad I tested it out because I don't think that's the thing I want to do, right? You get that because maybe it's not right. Maybe entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, right? Like it's
sure.
not. It is super challenging, right? Speaking, you lead an organization. It's a super challenging thing to do. But I look back at it and I say, man, like every day, it's the most rewarding, challenging, stretching thing I've ever done in my life. Like I'm being stretched on so many different levels. Like being a CEO, guiding a business, developing a team, bringing on resources, serving clients, thinking about scale. It's one of the most challenging but rewarding things I've ever done in my life.
It grows you. It definitely grows you in ways that maybe you wish it wouldn't
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's got to be done. So just to
Thanks.
finish up, then, if you were to say, I love this question, which is, you know, what are the attributes of an ideal business to you? So what I mean by that, let me just explain that a little bit, which is like outside of like it being, a fractional CFO or software company or selling t-shirts or whatever. But what are the attributes of like a really great business? What does it give you? What would it give you as an owner?
Man, first one, great. It has to be on the people side, right? You gotta start there, man. Having a great culture, right? Having a great set of leadership, and people can be a lot of different things, right? That's like transparency, that's vulnerability, that's all those core competencies, right? But I'm saying you got to have a great culture of people inside of your organization, right? Because if you're going through challenging time, there's been so many challenging times that I've gone through in my career, but we had a great culture, we had a great team, we had a great set of leadership. It makes it a whole lot different than going through that very challenging adversity and you're dealing with just like really like negative now you don't want to deal with those people, right? Like so
Hmm.
I think like one of the first things of any successful business, you got to have a great people culture, right? You got to have a great, and that starts from the leadership, from the CEO all the way down to the individual contributors, right? Promoting and establishing and living a great culture is vital. I would say the second thing is an organization that's curious, right? One of the superpower curiosity. I love people, right? And I'm that kind of person. Like I'm the person that's like, well, why is that like that? Well, what if we did this? Well, why is like curiosity is a superpower. And I think if you have an organization full of curious people, maybe they're curious about their team, maybe they're curious about the role, maybe they're curious about the industry. Curiosity amongst your organization and having a way that you can harness that curiosity and promote it, that is like I think a underdeveloped like value of great businesses, right? Of just curiosity and saying, hey, I love that, let's go test it, which leads to my final point. A data driven company, right? Like you see so many organizations, man, they grow, they scale, they're like, we got clients that are $80 million, and before working with the CEO, it was just like, I think this is right. I'm like, man, you're making $15 million decisions and you have like no data to support. You're just like, I hope this is correct, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I think that third element of all great organizations is, best data wins, right?
Yeah.
Not the person that is the best salesperson or the best person to influence. It's like, hey man, I remember a great saying that, and I say this, and it is a hip hop artist. His name is Jay Z, one of the best hip hop artists of all time. He had a saying in one of his songs. He's like, "Men lie, women lie, numbers don't." Right. So having to that conversation, you got a great culture of people, right? That are culture, they're focused, they're mission driven, they're value focused. You've got a culture of curiosity and learning inside the organization. Now you couple data with that. I mean, that's the recipe of success, man. You got great people, you got great people who are curious, and they're validating and testing that curiosity through data, and you're able to move as an organization. I think, to me, those three recipes inside of an organization, you got a really, really great, you got something special. And I look back at that in all the companies I was a part of where we grown and scale. That's exactly what we had. We had great people. We were curious, like sales was curious, marketing was curious, operations was curious, finance was curious. We had a very like curiosity learning culture. And a lot of times we did our best. And I'm not saying it was always 100%, but we always came and made sure we had data to support. It wasn't emotion, right? Because when you start getting that in the business, right? Well, he's a salesperson and he uses all his fancy words and he just influences people. It's like when you have those building blocks starting early, man, that's where you create something real special.
Yeah, I'm a data person also, and I have some friends of mine who are entrepreneurs, and they are anything but. They're like jazz hands, sell it, fake it till you make it, let's just go, and they are amazingly successful. So
Yes.
there's a path for everyone. Like you can actually, if you want to take the path of just like you know, uh, if you want to be data driven and analytical and stuff, there's great examples of success there. If you want to be jazz hands and like coffees for closers, obviously there's loads of examples of success there, and you can just pick your own adventure, right? So you can decide which way you
Mhm.
want to go. Chris,
Definitely.
it's been amazing chatting to you. I mean, I have to say, I was looking forward to this because you brought such great energy to the conversation and insight. I really enjoyed it. How can people get in touch with you or follow up with you or reach out to you?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about Fresh FP&A and how we can help transform and scale your finance organization, check us out on our website, www.freshfpa.com. Basically, what that spells is Fresh FPA. And then also follow us on all of our socials. It's just the same thing at Fresh FPA on all the socials. I'm all over LinkedIn. So if there's anything that you heard or want to expand upon more, I'm all about connecting with people and helping support and serve any way that I can. So connect with me on LinkedIn. You can just type in the search bar Fresh CFO, that pops up. Happy to connect, happy to help. Yeah, and if anybody's listening ever in Indiana and want to know what a Hoosier is, come check me out.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll be first there. All right, Chris. Have a great week. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Awesome. Thank you, James.